The sanctuary was silent, in a way that pressed against the ribs, a silence so dense it made every breath feel like an intrusion. I sat alone in the front pew, my hands folded tightly over the program bearing my wife's name. Marjorie Hartman, beloved wife, loyal friend, gentle soul. 47 years of marriage reduced to a few printed lines, and the gleam of a closed casket resting only a few feet away from me. I could not bring myself to look at it for long. Every time I tried, my chest tightened with a pressure that felt like grief trying to claw its way outward. Sunlight seeped weakly through the stained glass windows, casting fractured colors onto the casket lid. Marjorie always loved the morning light. She said it made the world look honest. Today, it felt cruelly indifferent. People filtered in softly. Neighbors who had known her as the woman who baked bread on Saturdays. Members of the small choir she once sang with. A few employees from Grant Alderwood's estate, faces solemn as they took their seats. Marjorie had worked for Alderwood for more than a decade. She handled private matters for him, matters even I never fully understood. He trusted her completely, and she trusted him with secrets she never had the heart to burden me with. A hush fell as the pastor stepped up to the altar. Before he could speak, the chapel doors banged open. Darren, my son, and right behind him, Clarissa. They strode in laughing at something on her phone, the sound echoing sharply in the quiet room. Clarissa wore a glittering dress, more fitting for a nightclub than a funeral. Darren's collar was crooked, his tie half undone, his eyes darting around like he was searching for a verdict or an opportunity. They were 40 minutes late. Clarissa fanned herself dramatically as they sat behind me. Her voice carried, unfiltered and sharp. "It is so hot in here, and these seats are tiny. You could have at least chosen a nicer place, Darren." My son muttered something under his breath that I did not catch, his thumbs already flying across his phone screen. I kept my eyes forward. I had no room left for anger. Grief occupied every inch already. The service began. Words about peace, words about memory. None of them soothed me. When the pastor invited attendees to share their thoughts, a kind neighbor spoke about Marjorie's garden. One of Alderwood's staff shared a quiet reflection about her kindness. And then, mercifully, it ended. As people rose to leave, I heard Darren's voice behind me, low, but not low enough. "Once we get the key, everything will be fine. Dad has to give it to us now. Mom is gone. We need the safe." My stomach tightened. Clarissa replied with that shrill whisper she used when pretending to be discreet. "We should have had access years ago. Honestly, your mother was so dramatic with her medications. At least we will not be drowning in pharmacy bills anymore." The words pierced me. My wife had fought quietly for months against failing health. She never complained, never once asked for pity. To hear her dismissed like an inconvenience made my jaw clench so hard it hurt. After the burial, I walked slowly toward my car. I needed air, I needed time, I needed anything that was not the two vipers walking behind me in designer clothes and cheap morality. But before I could open the door, I felt Darren's hand clamp onto my arm. "Dad, you need to give me the safe key. Now. The lawyer cannot access anything until we have it. We are trying to help you." Clarissa stepped beside him, plastering on a smile that never reached her cold eyes. "It is really for the best. You cannot live alone anymore. We will be selling the house, and you can move into a care facility near us. It will be comfortable, clean, efficient." The words hit me like a cold wave. Sell my house. Move me like furniture. I pulled my arm back. Not today, not now. Darren's eyes darkened, anger flickering under the surface. You do not get to make this difficult. You are old. Things are changing whether you like it or not. I turned away. If I stayed another second, grief might be replaced by something far darker. The sky had dimmed as clouds drifted overhead. The first drops of rain tapped onto the roof of my car. My phone buzzed. Grant Alderwood. The man had not called me personally in over 5 years. I answered. His voice trembled, but not with age, with urgency. Samuel. Listen carefully. Do not go home. Come to me immediately. Use the side entrance, and come alone. My heart thudded. Grant, what is going on? A long pause. Then a sentence that cleaved through me. I know what really happened to Marjorie. The call ended. The wind picked up. Rain streaked across the windshield. Behind me, Darren and Clarissa whispered heatedly beside their car. And for the first time since Marjorie died, grief stepped aside and left room for something sharp. Fear. The drive to Grant Alderwood's private residence felt longer than it ever had before. Rain thickened into silver sheets that blurred the road, turning the world outside into streaks of gray and trembling light. Wipers scraped rhythmically across the windshield, a metronome for the dread pulsing through my veins. Every mile deepened the hollow ache in my chest, the one that whispered warnings I was not ready to hear. Grant lived far from town, tucked behind acres of old forests and a winding road known only to locals. His estate was protected by high walls, hidden gates, and a reputation for keeping secrets sealed tighter than vault doors. I had visited Marjorie there on occasion when she needed a ride or when the weather turned bad, but I had never stepped into Grant's private study. That was where he asked me to meet him now. That alone terrified me. When I reached the secondary gate, it opened before I even stopped the car. A guard in a rain poncho motioned me through with a solemn nod. Someone had been watching for my arrival. My shoes splashed through puddles as I hurried toward the dim side entrance. The heavy door creaked open without me knocking. A tall man in a trench coat stood inside, water dripping from the hem. He looked like a shadow cut into human shape. "Mr. Hartman," he said quietly, "I am Lewis Crane. Please come in." Crane. The name clicked. A private investigator. Marjorie once mentioned him, briefly, as someone people hired when truths were too dangerous to uncover alone. Why had she spoken with him? Before I could ask anything, Crane led me down a narrow corridor lit only by wall sconces. The silence felt expectant, like the house itself was holding its breath. At the end of the hall, he pushed open a large oak door. Grant Alderwood sat behind a wide mahogany desk, his posture rigid and his expression carved from worry. His once commanding presence seemed dimmed by illness, but his eyes remained sharp, studying me as though weighing whether to speak or stay silent forever. "Samuel," he said, rising slowly, "I am deeply sorry for your loss and for what you are about to learn." I swallowed hard. What is this about? What happened to my wife? Grant exchanged a look with Crane. It was the kind of look people shared when standing at the edge of a revelation too heavy to carry alone. Crane stepped forward, placing a weathered leather journal on the table. The edges were frayed. The cover was cracked. I recognized it instantly. Marjorie's. Except I had never seen that particular journal before. Grant opened it gently. as though afraid it might fall apart in his hands. "She came to me 2 months ago," he began. "She feared something was terribly wrong at home. She asked me to keep this safe until she could decide what to do." The pages were filled with her handwriting. Soft loops, careful lines. I felt my throat tighten. Crane pulled out a stack of printed photographs. He set the first one in front of me. Darren, standing outside a pharmacy, a small white bag in his hand. I frowned. That was not unusual. Crane placed the next photo beside it. Darren again. But this time he was meeting a man behind the building, slipping him cash in exchange for a different bag. The look on my son's face was not one of concern. It was eagerness. Then the third photo. Darren in my kitchen at night. The faint glow of the refrigerator light illuminated his profile. In his hand, he held Marjorie's medication bottle. He was pouring the pills into a plastic bag. On the counter next to him sat a matching bottle filled with pills that looked similar but were not the same. My breath left me in a rush. No. Crane laid down the fourth photo. This one stole the remaining air from my lungs. Darren, standing over Marjorie's pill organizer, smiling. A small, twisted smile I had never seen on him before. A surge of heat burned through my chest. My hands shook. The room tilted. But Crane was not finished. He slid a final document across the table. Bank records, withdrawal slips, screenshots of forged signatures. "Your wife discovered that Darren had been stealing money from her for months," Crane said. "He was desperate, in debt, and when she confronted him, she believed he retaliated by tampering with her medication." I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles whitened. Grant spoke softly. "She tried to protect you, Samuel. She tried to gather enough evidence to stop him safely, but she feared he would turn on you next." My vision blurred. "I will kill him," I whispered, the words trembling with fury I could no longer contain. "I swear to God, I will kill him with my bare hands." Grant slammed his palm onto the desk with surprising force. "No, Samuel. If you do that, he wins." He leaned forward, his voice low and grave. "Your son has already planned to declare you incompetent. If you kill him, everything Marjorie worked to protect will fall into his hands. We need him alive. We need him to confess." Crane nodded. "We can trap him, but you must go home, and you must act exactly as he expects you to." I stared at the photographs. At the evidence of betrayal so deep, it seemed impossible to survive. Grant lowered his voice further. "There is one more thing. Something I have not shown you yet. Something Marjorie wanted you to have only when you were ready." He reached for a sealed envelope resting beside the journal. "Inside this," he said, "is the truth she feared most." My pulse pounded in my ears, and for the first time since she died, I realized the story of Marjorie's final days had barely begun. By the time I reached my street, the rain had eased into a thin mist, the kind that softened the world without washing anything away. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Sleep had not touched me in days, but exhaustion was nothing compared to the dread that pooled in my stomach. Crane's photos burned in my mind like brands. Grant's warning echoed over and over. Go home. Pretend to be weak. Let him reveal himself. The house looked different as I approached it. Not physically, emotionally. As if I were seeing the structure not as my home, but as a stage where danger was waiting in the wings. The front curtains were drawn shut. Lights flickered in the living room. I took a breath, steadied myself, and unlocked the door. The interior had been turned inside out. Drawers yanked open, cushions slit, paintings tilted or torn from the wall. My wife's porcelain figurines lay shattered across the floor, like bones from a broken past. A sound reached me from upstairs, a mechanical whirring, sharp, hard, hungry, a drill. I climbed the stairs slowly, leaning heavily on my cane, letting my steps echo like a frail man's. When I reached the bedroom, Darren was crouched in front of the wall safe, drilling through the metal casing with reckless force. Sweat rolled down his face. His hair stuck to his forehead as he pushed the drill into the steel like a desperate miner searching for air. Clarissa was tearing through Marjorie's dresser, flinging scarves and jewelry across the room. "Clarissa," I said softly. She froze, then spun around with a startled gasp before her expression hardened. "Oh, you are back. Finally." Darren did not even look at me. The drill screamed louder. When he finally broke through the outer casing, he ripped the door open and plunged his hands inside. Empty. He whirled toward me, his face contorting with disbelief. "Where is it?" I blinked slowly, feigning confusion. "Where is what?" "Do not play games with me!" he roared, stepping toward me with the drill still in his hand. His eyes had gone wild, wide and furious with fear. "Where is the money? Where is the deed? Where is everything?" Clarissa crossed her arms. "I told you, he probably hid it somewhere before the funeral. He is old." He panicked. "They do that." I felt my heart rate spike, not from fear, from rage. But I swallowed it down and kept my posture slumped, my voice fragile. "I do not know what you are talking about." Darren moved so fast I barely registered it. He shoved me against the wall, the cold tip of the drill pressing into my cheek. The vibration rattled my bones. "Stop!" Clarissa shrieked. "Not like this!" Darren's voice dropped to a low, fractured whisper. "You are going to give me what I want, or you are going to wish you had died with Mom." I let my knees buckle beneath me, let myself sag, let myself become the weak old man he expected. He stepped back instantly, cursing under his breath. "Dad! Dad! Come on! Do not do this right now. We need you alive, all right? Not dead on the floor." He grabbed me under the arms and hauled me to the bed. My legs trembled on purpose. "Just rest," he muttered, masking his panic. "We will handle everything." He snatched my phone from the bedside table and slipped it into his pocket. Clarissa walked to the door, locked it with a click, and placed a chair under the knob. Like I was a prisoner, like I was an obstacle. The room fell quiet as their footsteps faded down the hall. I lay still for several minutes, listening. Soft voices, footsteps pacing, a drawer opening. Then Darren's voice, tense and shaking, drifted through the thin wall. "I do not have it, Morrow. I am telling you, the money is here somewhere. Give me 2 days. 2 days." Silence. Then a distant, chilling threat spoken by an unfamiliar voice through the phone. 2 days. Then we take what you owe, in blood if we must. I felt the air leave my lungs. He was deeper in danger than we knew, dangerous enough to kill again. When the house finally quieted, I rolled slowly to the edge of the bed and pressed my fingers to the wooden floor. The third plank from the wall clicked softly as I nudged it aside. The small space beneath held 2 things I prayed I would never need again. A weathered old revolver, and a tiny, obsolete cell phone. I turned it on. The screen flickered weakly, but came to life. I typed the agreed-upon message, "Blue Lantern." 3 seconds later, the phone vibrated with a single reply. "Understood." I slipped the phone back into the hiding spot and returned the plank. Outside my locked door, footsteps approached quietly, paused, then stayed still, as if the person behind the door were waiting for my breathing to change. I held mine. The shadow stood there for almost a full minute. When it finally walked away, my hands trembled, not from fear, but from the certainty of what I now knew. I was not safe in my own home, and the night ahead would be long. Morning crept into the house without warmth, a pale light filtering weakly through the curtained windows. I had barely slept, lying still beneath the thin quilt, listening to every creak of the old floorboards, every whisper, every door hinge, every shift in the air. The house that had once been a refuge now breathed danger with every settling sound. Just after sunrise, there came a soft knock on my door. Too soft, too careful. Clarissa spoke through the wood, her voice honeyed, unsteady, practiced. "Samuel, breakfast is ready. I made something special for you. Special." The word slid through the crack under the door with a coldness that made my stomach tighten. Clarissa had never cooked breakfast in all the years she'd been part of this family. She barely cooked at all. She burned toast. She underboiled pasta. She claimed recipes stressed her out. Yet now she was making me something special. I sat up slowly, letting my movements stay sluggish, lethargic, the way Darren expected them. I opened the door. Clarissa stood holding a tray, smiling too widely, her eyes darting nervously toward the staircase. "Look," she said brightly, "oatmeal just the way you like it, and fresh fruit." Steam rose from the bowl, curling in delicate tendrils, but there was something off about the scent, something metallic, something wrong. I lowered my gaze, pretending confusion. "You did not have to do this, Clarissa." She laughed, high and thin. "Of course I did. You are family. We just want you to feel cared for." Her words trembled at the edges, as though fear held the strings controlling her tone. I let her lead me to the dining table downstairs. Darren was there, pacing behind a chair, eyes bloodshot and wild. He offered me a tight smile that never reached his eyes. "Morning, Dad. Big day. We need to go over some papers later. But first, you need to eat." He rested his hands on my shoulders as I sat down, a gesture that felt more like restraint than affection. Clarissa placed the bowl in front of me and set a spoon beside it. Her fingers trembled slightly. I glanced up. She noticed the movement and curled her hands behind her back to hide them. I lifted the spoon. My hand shook, not with fear, but with calculation. I dipped it into the oatmeal, raised it halfway to my lips, then paused. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Clarissa's eyes followed the spoon like a cat watching a dangling string. I feigned a tremor and let my hand slip. The bowl tipped violently, clattering against the table's edge. Oatmeal spilled across the tablecloth, dripping onto the hardwood floor. "Oh no," I murmured. "My hand." It slipped. Clarissa gasped. Darren cursed under his breath. Before either could move, a blur of white fur bounded into the room. Buttons. Clarissa's beloved bulldog, round and eager, tongue lolling happily. She darted straight to the mess and began lapping up the fallen oatmeal. Clarissa screamed. "No, Buttons, no, stop!" She shoved the chair back with such force it toppled. She dove to the floor, grabbing at the dog, but Buttons had already swallowed more than a mouthful. Darren stood frozen, staring in horror. Seconds. It took seconds. Buttons staggered back, legs wobbling, foam gathering at the corners of her mouth. Her body convulsed, muscles locking as a choked yelp slipped from her throat. Then another. Then silence. The bowl dropped from Clarissa's hands as she lifted the limp body, sobbing. Buttons? Baby? Buttons, wake up! Please wake up! Darren grabbed her shoulders roughly. Clarissa, stop! Stop! You used too much. Used too much. The words hung in the air like a toxin. I remained seated, hunched, trembling faintly, the picture of a frail old man barely grasping what had happened. But inside me, something hardened, sharpened, focused. Clarissa rocked back and forth on the floor, clutching the dog's still body. We are going to jail, she whispered shakily. Darren, we are going to jail. No, we are not, he hissed. Not if we get what we need. Not if he signs everything today. He turned and glared at me, eyes dark with panic, fury, desperation. I lifted my gaze just enough to meet his eyes and let him see nothing but confusion. What happened to the dog? I asked softly. Clarissa wailed into her hands. Darren shot me a look that was half accusation, half hatred. Eat something else, he snapped. We need you strong enough to go to the notary this afternoon. Strong enough, because dead too soon would ruin his plan. With Button's body still warm in her lap, Clarissa staggered to her feet and dragged the dog upstairs, sobbing incoherently. Darren followed, muttering bitterly, trying to restrain her panic before it spiraled out of control. The moment they disappeared, I stood and walked quietly toward the hallway mirror. From the corner of my eye, I could see the kitchen doorway reflected behind me. A small white envelope sat under the fruit bowl on the counter. The same type of envelope Marjorie once used to hold her weekly medication. I stared into the mirror, my reflection pale, tired, but clear-eyed. They would try again. Tonight. Tomorrow. Soon. And if I failed to play my role perfectly, if I slipped for even a moment, I would end up like Buttons, lying cold on the floor. I turned from the mirror and moved carefully back to my room, shutting the door behind me. The house was no longer just dangerous. It was lethal, and the clock was ticking. By early afternoon, the house felt suffocating, steeped in a thick haze of resentment and barely contained fear. Clarissa had locked herself in the spare bedroom with Button's body, her muffled sobs leaking through the door. Darren stomped around the house, making phone call after phone call, each one shorter and angrier than the last. His debts were closing in. His patience was collapsing. And I was the only thing standing between him and complete ruin. Just after 3, he barged into my room without knocking. Get up, Dad. We are going to see a doctor. A real one. His voice was strained, frantic, stripped of politeness. Clarissa lingered behind him, her mascara smudged, eyes red. She clutched her elbows as if holding herself together. A doctor? I said slowly, letting confusion soften my tone. I do not need... Yes, you do, Darren snapped. You are not well. You cannot manage your affairs. We need documentation before any legal transfers can happen. His jaw flexed. And we need them today. The word documentation burned through the air like acid. He grabbed my jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Clarissa remained silent, following us down the hallway like a ghost. Outside, the air was crisp. The storm had passed, leaving behind a heavy, metallic scent that clung to the wind. Darren shoved me into the passenger seat and sped away, tires squealing against the pavement. As we drove, I watched the familiar streets slip past. At first, I assumed we were heading toward the clinic near the city center. But after a few turns, Darren veered sharply down a side road. Then another. Then another. The houses thinned. The streetlights disappeared. We entered the industrial outskirts of town. Rusting warehouses, boarded windows, weeds pushing through cracked pavement. This was a part of the city respectable people pretended did not exist. My chest tightened. Darren, where are we going? To someone who can help us, he replied without looking at me. A doctor who does not need official procedures. Clarissa spoke for the first time. It will be quick, painless. Just cooperate, all right? The car rolled to a stop beside a cinder block building stained with old graffiti. A flickering neon sign above the door buzzed weakly, the letter C in clinic hanging crooked. My pulse hammered. Inside, the hallway smelled of bleach, mold, and old metal. The waiting chairs were cracked plastic. A buzzing fluorescent light flickered overhead. A man stepped through a back door, wiping his hands on a stained cloth. His lab coat was yellowed, his beard unkempt. His eyes held a strange mix of exhaustion and greed. "This is our father," Darren said quickly. "We need an evaluation, mental capacity, competency, and maybe something to calm him." He leaned in. "You know, to keep him relaxed." The man nodded slowly and motioned us toward a small examination room. "Name is Dr. Malloy," he said flatly. "Sit down, sir." I sat on the rickety stool. Clarissa lingered near the wall, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Malloy rummaged in a drawer, pulling out a syringe pre-filled with a clear liquid. He tapped the side of it with a fingernail. "Vitamin enhancer," he said casually. "Helps with mental clarity." My stomach twisted. "May I ask what is in that?" He shrugged. "It does not matter. You will feel calm, cooperative." Darren stepped closer. "Just take it, Dad. Stop making things hard." Clarissa's eyes darted anxiously between us, silently begging the process to be over. Malloy approached me. The needle glinted under the sickly fluorescent light. He raised my sleeve. I caught his wrist mid-air. Malloy froze. Darren stiffened. I leaned in, lowering my voice, letting each word cut slowly. "Sheriff Logan knows I am here." A lie, but spoken like truth. And he knows about the unregistered clinics on this street. Malloy's eyes widened. His hand jerked. The needle slipped, clattering to the floor. "What?" His voice cracked. You told law enforcement?" I held his gaze, steady and cold. "I told them everything." Malloy recoiled as if burned. He backed away, breathing hard, eyes darting to the hallway as though expecting officers to storm in any second. "Get out!" His voice climbed an octave. "Get out! Both of you! I want nothing to do with this! Out!" Darren sputtered, reaching for him. "No. Wait. We need—" Malloy grabbed a broom and swung it wildly. "I said, out! You will not pin anything on me! Go before I call the police myself!" He shoved us toward the exit with surprising force. The door slammed behind us, rattling the glass. Outside, the cold air struck my face. Darren paced in frantic circles, clawing at his hair. "You ruined it!" he shouted. "You ruined everything! How am I supposed to fix this now?" Clarissa grabbed his arm. "Calm down! Someone will hear." I watched them silently, letting my shoulders slump, my breaths come shallow, the image of the helpless old man they needed me to be. But inside, a fire was spreading. They were losing control. They were desperate, and desperate people were the most dangerous. Darren stopped pacing and looked at me with a hatred that chilled my bones. "Dad, we are finishing this today. One way or another." He shoved me back into the car. Clarissa climbed in quietly, her hands trembling. As Darren floored the accelerator, I looked out the window at the passing warehouses, wondering just how much time I had left before their final attempt. Not long. Not long at all. By the time we pulled into the driveway, dusk had smothered the sky in bruised purple. The porch light flickered weakly, casting long, distorted shadows across the walkway. Darren's jaw was clenched so tightly I could hear the grind of his teeth as he shoved the gear into park. "Get inside," he muttered. Clarissa did not speak. She kept her distance from him, clutching her purse like a life preserver, her eyes following every twitch in his expression. The collapse of their earlier confidence was obvious. They were frayed, unhinged, terrified. And I was the pressure point they were determined to crush before the night ended. The moment I stepped into the house, I felt it. Something was wrong. The air was thick with the scent of cooking meat layered over a sharp chemical tang, as if someone had wiped down the counters with industrial cleaner. The table was set, not with our old chipped plates, but with their wedding china. The tarnished silverware, cloth napkins folded neatly. It was a grotesque mimicry of a family dinner. Clarissa moved into the kitchen quickly. "Dinner is ready, Dad," she called out, her voice too cheerful, too high-pitched. I had known for a long time that the kitchen was the heart of my wife's home. But tonight, it was a trap dressed in linen. Darren guided me toward the table with a forceful hand on my back. "Sit." I lowered myself slowly, clutching my cane, letting my breaths come shallow, as if fatigue were overtaking me. Clarissa brought 2 bowls to the table. Steam rose from the one she placed in front of me. The broth was dark, almost opaque. I watched her carefully. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small, folded paper packet. White, harmless looking. A packet no one would question unless they knew exactly what to look for. She turned her body slightly, shielding her movements, but I saw it clearly in the reflection of the microwave door. She tore the packet open. Fine white powder slipped into my bowl, dissolving instantly. Clarissa stirred it once, twice, 3 times. Darren sat across from me, hands folded, eyes fixed on my spoon. "Eat, Dad. We need you strong for tomorrow." I looked down at the bowl. The scent of the broth reached me. Something earthy. Something metallic. Something wrong. Clarissa set her own bowl on the table untouched, her fingers drumming anxiously against the ceramic. "You have to eat," she insisted, forcing a smile that looked almost painful. I picked up the spoon. My hand trembled, partly acting, partly very real. I raised it toward my mouth as their eyes widened in anticipation. Then I made the mistake. My arm jerked. The spoon slammed against the bowl, sending it flying off the table. It shattered across the floor, broth splattering across the cabinets and my shoes. Clarissa screamed. "Oh my God, look what you did." Darren stood violently, knocking his chair backward. "For once in your life, just cooperate." He stepped forward, but then a low growl broke the tension. From under the dining table waddled Muffin, Clarissa's elderly pug. The only living creature she truly loved. The spoiled, pampered thing she treated like royalty. Before anyone could react, Muffin lunged toward the puddle of broth. Muffin, no! Clarissa shrieked. But it was too late. The dog lapped up the poisoned soup with frantic enthusiasm, tail wagging. Silence slammed into the room like a hammer. Darren froze. Clarissa gasped. I didn't move. Muffin sneezed, then coughed. Then her legs stiffened. Within seconds, her little body convulsed. She collapsed, foam bubbling from her mouth. Clarissa fell to her knees, screaming, gathering the dog's limp body into her arms. Muffin! Muffin! Wake up! Someone help her! But the dog was gone. The poison had done exactly what it was meant to do. Clarissa's sobs were piercing, raw, terrified. Darren stumbled backward, running his hands through his hair. No. No, no, no. Then he looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw something deeper than fear. I saw realization. Dad didn't eat the soup. He knows. Clarissa looked up from the dog's body, her face streaked with tears, makeup smeared. Darren, he can't leave this table. Not tonight. Darren clenched his fists, his voice trembling. Tomorrow morning, that exam decides everything. If he passes, we get nothing. If he talks, we get prison. We do it tonight, Clarissa. It ends tonight. She swallowed hard, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Then do it. Do it now. Darren turned to me slowly. His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. You are not leaving this house alive unless you sign. For a moment, no one moved. Then I did something neither of them expected. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, let my breathing grow slow and shallow, and whispered faintly, I feel dizzy. Clarissa's eyes widened. It's happening. It's starting. He must have gotten some of the soup on his hands. Darren leaned closer, panic rising. Dad? Dad? I let my head slump to the side, a perfect imitation of a man going under. And just like that, Darren forgot rage. He remembered desperation. He remembered the trust. He remembered the money. He grabbed me by the shoulders. Dad, stay with me. Just sign the papers. Sign them now. His voice cracked with terror. Terrified he might lose me. Terrified he might lose everything. It was working. Let them think they won. Because the more desperate they became, the sloppier their crimes would get. And the closer I came to ending this nightmare once and for all. I let myself drift in and out of a feigned haze as the night dragged on. Darren paced the house like a caged animal, pausing every so often to press a trembling hand to his forehead. Clarissa sat rigidly on the couch, clutching a glass of water she never drank from. The lamp beside her flickered, throwing fractured shadows across her blotchy face. Muffin's tiny bed sat empty on the floor, the blanket still wrinkled from when she last slept in it. Neither of them dared to move it. By dawn, exhaustion and panic had hollowed them out. We are doing this today, Darren muttered as he stalked past my bedroom door. No more mistakes, no more delays. Clarissa trailed behind him, wringing her hands. Just make him sign. I cannot take another night like this. Her voice cracked, and Darren snapped at her without even turning around. Then pull yourself together. But I saw it clearly. The cracks, the unraveling. Their plan was beginning to devour them from inside. By mid-morning, they ushered me into the living room, where a stack of legal documents sat on the coffee table. Transfer of property, transfer of financial authority, signatures waiting, pens neatly aligned. Before Darren could force the first page in front of me, A loud knock jolted the entire house. Clarissa flinched violently. Darren's eyes widened. "Who the hell is that?" he hissed. He stormed to the front door, yanked it open, and froze. A young couple stood on the porch, smiling politely despite sensing the tension. The woman held a clipboard. The man scanned the front yard. "Hi," the woman chirped. "We are here for the house showing? You said 10:30? Clarissa's eyes widened in horror. "Darren, you scheduled another showing today?" Darren forced a smile onto his strained face. "Yes. Yes, of course. Come in. The house is ready." I watched them with quiet amusement. They had no idea they were walking straight into a crime scene painted over with scented candles and forced smiles. Clarissa scurried behind Darren, adjusting her shirt and smoothing her hair before greeting the couple like a real estate agent with terminal nerves. "Right this way. You're going to love the kitchen. The neighborhood is very stable." Her voice wobbled dangerously on the last word. As they toured the living room, the man frowned at a long gouge on the wall near the stairs. "What happened here?" Clarissa giggled stiffly. "Oh, just life with pets. You know how dogs can be." My gaze drifted to Muffin's empty bed. Darren shot her a warning look. The couple followed Clarissa toward the kitchen. I watched them through the corner of my eye. They stepped through the threshold, their shoes crunching lightly on something brittle, porcelain. One of Marjorie's shattered figurines lay half hidden beneath the stove, a broken bloom of painted ceramic. The woman's expression shifted. "Is everything all right here?" Before Darren could steer them away, the man noticed the faint chemical smell still lingering in the air. "It smells like cleaning solution. A lot of it." Darren's jaw tightened. "We have been preparing the home. It has been a stressful few days." The woman eyed me. I sat hunched on the couch, hands shaking slightly. "Is he all right?" she asked softly. Darren's voice sharpened. "He is fine. Perfectly fine, just tired." Clarissa's panic finally cracked. "He is not fine. Darren, he—" She stopped herself, breathing hard. The young couple exchanged a look. "I think we should go," the man said gently. Darren lunged toward them. Wait! You have not seen the basement." But the couple was already backing toward the door. "We appreciate your time, sir, but this does not feel—" Their sentence was swallowed as they rushed down the walkway, nearly tripping over each other in their hurry to escape. Darren slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. "You ruined it!" he shouted at Clarissa. "We had a buyer. We had a way out," Clarissa snapped back, hysteria rising. "Me? You poisoned the dog. You took us to that awful clinic. You—" "Enough!" Darren roared. He spun toward me, eyes blazing with desperation. "Dad, get up! We are finishing this now!" He dragged me down the hallway and shoved me into Marjorie's old study. A chair waited in the center of the room, an old desk lamp casting a sickly cone of light over the documents spread out before it. He retrieved something from the closet. A shotgun. My blood ran cold. He held it loosely at first, then raised it, barrel leveled at my chest. "Sign the papers," he said, his voice shaking with a deadly mixture of fear and determination. "Do it, or—" I raised one trembling hand. "Darren, why did you kill your mother?" Clarissa gasped. "Darren, don't!" His eyes widened. "That is not—" "I did not." But desperation loosens tongues faster than liquor. He stepped closer, finger tightening around the trigger. She pushed me. She threatened to expose me. She told Grant everything. She ruined my life before it even started. The room went cold. He leaned closer. She made me do it. All of it. Now sign. Click. Not the shotgun. The tiny recorder beneath the floorboard where I sat. The door burst open. Police. Crane. Grant's security team. Lights. Voices. Shouting. Darren spun, gun jerking toward me. I moved first. I grabbed the barrel with both hands, twisting sharply the way Grant's bodyguard had shown me at the estate. Darren screamed, the gun clattering to the floor. Officers swarmed him, dragging him back as he kicked and thrashed. Clarissa fell to her knees, sobbing. It was all him. I only... Her words dissolved into hysterical cries. And just like that, the storm inside my home finally broke. But it was far from over. The house was suddenly filled with a chaos that did not belong to it. Boots thudding against the hardwood, radios crackling, officers shouting instructions to one another. Yet beneath all the noise, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. Not peace exactly, but the fragile stillness that follows a long tremor. The danger had finally broken open, exposed to the light. Darren was dragged down the hallway, kicking and cursing, spitting accusations at everyone in reach. "You set me up," he screamed at me. "You old bastard! You trapped me!" His voice cracked under the weight of panic. "You think you are winning? You think this changes anything?" A detective pressed him against the wall to handcuff him. "It changes everything, Mr. Hartman. You confessed on recording." Clarissa was slumped beside the cold fireplace, knees hugged to her chest. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She rocked back and forth, muttering fragments of excuses. "I did not mean... I did not know. I just wanted a chance." An officer tried to steady her, but she shrank from his touch, curling into herself like a frightened child. Buttons and Muffin's absence felt loud in the room. The silence of their small lives echoing against the terrible choices their owners made. Crane approached me with purposeful steps, his expression softening slightly when he saw my face. "You did well," he said quietly. We could not have anticipated how quickly he would unravel. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting relief loosen the knot in my chest. "Is it over?" Crane shook his head. "Not yet. Darren will deny everything once he calms down. We need one final confirmation." He paused, letting the gravity settle. "We need to reopen Marjorie's case. We need toxicology." The words hit me like a blow. "Exhume her?" Crane nodded. "It is the only way to prove she did not die naturally." My heart twisted. The thought of disturbing her rest felt unthinkable, wrong, violent. But I also saw the truth. She had spent her last days fighting to protect me. She deserved justice, even if it meant lifting her from the earth one final time. I bowed my head. Do what you must. Days passed in a blur of statements, paperwork, interviews. Darren and Clarissa each gave multiple versions of their story, some blaming each other, some blaming me, some claiming ignorance. But the recording had captured everything. Darren's confession, his motive, his desperation. Their deaths at home had revealed far more than they ever intended. Then the toxicology report came. It confirmed what Crane and Grant had suspected. Marjorie's blood carried lethal levels of a synthetic stimulant, one strong enough to trigger heart failure, disguised in a capsule visually identical to her actual medication. A perfect silent weapon. The DA filed charges the same day. First-degree murder, attempted murder, financial exploitation. Conspiracy. I sat through the arraignment with an ache in my chest, watching my only child being led into a courtroom wearing handcuffs. He did not look at me, not once. His eyes were hollow, dark, frantic. Behind him, Clarissa sobbed into her sleeves, clutching the railing for support. It was a strange thing to lose your family and gain the truth on the same day. After the hearing, Crane handed me an envelope sealed in my wife's handwriting. "She meant for you to have this," he said. "She asked Grant to keep it safe." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were two things: a revised will and a letter addressed simply to my love. The will was clear. Darren was left exactly $1. Clarissa nothing. Everything else. Marjorie's investments, her earnings, her secret nest egg, was entrusted to me. But it was her letter that shattered me. She told me she had sensed Darren slipping away from goodness long before I had. She told me she hid her fear so I would not lose hope. She apologized for secrets she kept, though she kept them only to protect us both. And at the end, she wrote, "If you are reading this, forgive yourself. You did everything right. Now you must let the truth set you free." I clutched the letter to my chest, tears finally escaping after weeks of holding them back. A year later, on a quiet river far from home, I stood on the deck of a small boat with Grant Alderwood at my side. He was frailer now, but his eyes remained steady as he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ready?" he asked softly. I nodded. I opened the urn and let Marjorie's ashes drift into the wind. They swirled in the golden afternoon light, floating across the water's surface like silver petals. I whispered, "We are free now, Marjorie." Grant closed his eyes, as though offering her a silent farewell of his own. I had sold the house months earlier, donated portions of Marjorie's estate, created a foundation in her name that offered legal aid to elderly victims of family exploitation. A small attempt to turn our suffering into someone else's salvation. And as the last trace of her ash touched the water, I understood the truth she had left for me. Blood does not define family. Actions do, and sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from those who choose darkness. I breathed in deeply, letting her final lessons settle in my bones. Love fiercely, protect wisely, and never let betrayal be the final word.